Hi, I'm Cathy Neptune and welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to give you tips, tools, and recipes to make your time in the kitchen fun, fast, and fabulous. And we're moving on into the season for St. Patrick's Day, and I'm going to share with you some Irish slants, if you will, on some favorite recipes, comfort food, country cooking, and I think you're going to enjoy it. We're going to do an Irish stew with some vegetables that might surprise you, but and a few additions that are interesting. And we're going to do some potato biscuits, very Irish, very easy, and just is so comforting with a nice Irish stew. And then we're doing Baileys Cupcakes, Baileys cakes. And I'm going to start out with the cakes first so they'll have time to cook and to cool. And I just took a regular box cake mix, whatever your choice is, and I'm putting them into little muffin papers because I think they're easy to take in and out. And you know, a cake mix has eggs and oil and a little bit of water, and it's a great way to do these. And I'm using a scoop because I just like how they come out really evenly. So putting that, my oven is per directions 350 degrees. And these probably make 18 cupcakes, but I'm just going to do 6 at a time so you can see how these are done. And then what makes this a surprise on the inside, I have these lovely little mint cookies, and I put them in the center and push them down almost till they disappear. Let me do that again on this one. And what's going to happen is they're centered inside of the cupcake, and all the rest of the cake is going to come up and over and bake into them. So it makes a nice little surprise. And then we're going to glaze these with a nice frosting made with Baileys Irish cream. So how Irish is that? And you can see already how the batter is closing in over the little patty melt inside. And when they come out of the oven, these only take about 15, 19 minutes at the most. And they're done and good to go. This is a great time saver too. Always consider making cupcakes instead of a full cake because they take less time. So I'm going to put these into my preheated oven. And I'm going to set my timer. Let's do 19 minutes because I think that's about right. And let those go. And while those are cooking, we have enough batter. You could even make a nice little loaf cake out of this too. So we're going to set that aside. I'll make the rest of those later. And then we're going to do our Irish stew. And these are our vegetables here. And I cut them ahead of time and I soaked them in some water. And I have potatoes, carrots, and this is what's different, parsnips. I don't think we use parsnips enough. And what we have here, oops, I want to show you in this pot. Let me get a little hot plate here. I caramelized 3 cups of onions, and look at how it's cooked down into that much. That's all we have. And I used regular white onions, and look at how golden brown they are. This is how you make French onion soup. And the way you do this is to break the onions down and cook them until they're soft. Probably 15 minutes or so. And it's all about technique when you're browning onions. And the reason they're such a gorgeous color is after 15 minutes when they've softened and broken down, you add usually a teaspoon of white sugar. Now, because we're adding another interesting ingredient, we're going to add a stout beer to this, which gives it a wonderful flavor. But a stout beer, or any beer for that matter, can be very bitter. So in order to offset that bitterness, instead of using white sugar to caramelize the onions, I used about a tablespoon of brown sugar. And you do that and you watch it very carefully and cook the onions for another 20 minutes. And that's what brings the natural sweetness out, a wonderful brown color, and caramelizes the onions. And that's the secret to making a good French onion soup too. And I thought the onions would really, a lot of onions are really going to stand up to the stout beer and the lamb meatballs that we're going to make to go with it. Now, while that's warming up, I want to take another undertone of flavor here. It's all about layering flavors because we're going to add some beef stock. But I have some Italian tomato paste, another layer of flavor, not a lot, just about a tablespoon into the pot. Here's another secret. Whenever you're using tomato paste and you're cooking with it, always cook out the raw flavor of your tomato paste, because that adds another depth of flavor. And when you're doing anything with a broth, that's what you want to do. So it only takes about a minute or so, keeping your eye on it, just stirring it gently. And then we're going to cook in a lot of flavors to this. You can see it's all incorporated. Oh, that smells, the onions smell so good in here. And you're not just going to taste a tomatoey flavor, but it's going to give it a nice depth. So some boxed, a little bit of beef stock. And you can do homemade if you wanted to, but these are so convenient. You can even use the bouillon if you want, but I find bouillon is a little too salty, so I like this in a carton. And this is probably 6-7 cups of stock. And then we're going to add our vegetables here. Now you'll notice, as I mentioned, they cut them all about the carrots, parsnips, and potatoes, all about the same size so that they will cook evenly. Now here's another tip. When you're doing raw root vegetables, such as potatoes, did you know that you don't heat up your liquid first? You add them into a cold liquid. That way they'll cook evenly. If you added these into a hot liquid first, all the outside would cook and get mushy, and your inside would stay really raw. So the best practice, even if you're just boiling potatoes, is to just put them in when your liquid is cold. And that way you don't have to like babysit them. You just put them all in at once and they are good to go. And then to this, we're going to put it on the stove. Mix this up a little bit. This smells wonderful. Put that on. That's going to make a nice hearty soup. And then our wonderful Guinness Stout beer. We're going to add about a cup in there, and that's going to cook down and give it a wonderful flavor. You're going to love the parsnips in this too. It makes it really, really special. And those onions are going to give a lot of flavor. So we're going to let that come to a simmer, cook it down a little bit, and then we're going to come back and make our lamb meatballs. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. We have our pot of soup going with our Guinness beer, and we have our little Irish Baileys cakes in the oven, and we're going to do some meatballs to go with them. So I have about a little less than a pound of ground lamb, nice fresh ground lamb, and to that I'm going to add an egg. And this is what I do now. I'm going to add all my seasonings to the egg to disperse it. So I'm going to do a couple of pinches of salt, and this is a Himalayan sea salt. You want to really season it up. And some nice, this is my new favorite. It's called Rainbow Peppercorns. It's got all different flavors. You'd be amazed how you have so many different flavors and all the different kinds of peppercorns that are in there. And Lamb just loves peppercorn. And believe it or not, some of them are actually sweet. They have a sweet flavor to them. A little bit of thyme, because lamb can really handle the extra flavor. Not even half a teaspoon of that. Some beautiful flat leaf parsley. We add a good tablespoon of that. Keeps it nice and fresh. And mixing that up, and I'm going to add a fresh clove of garlic. Lamb just loves garlic. So don't forget to email me if you have questions on the resources for these tools. But that's why I love this garlic press, because you don't have to peel your garlic. You just put it in there with the skin on. And that goes in. There's the skin. We don't want that. And actually, I meant to put that in here. Going to toss a few of our toasted breadcrumbs. And if you want to know how to do these, check out my Valentine's video that I did last month. And they're toasted with herbs and olive oil. And I made croutons and then pop them in the oven. You have this nice golden color. So probably a 1/3 cup of your seasoned breadcrumbs. We're going to add the egg and the seasonings, and that's going to do all the flavors in there. Now, if you didn't want lamb, because I know it's an acquired taste for most people, it's a little bit stronger than a hamburger would be, then you could do a mixture maybe of ground hamburger and ground lamb together, or you could do pork and lamb and beef. But I think that the ground lamb with the Guinness beer, and it's just so Irish. And I think you're going to love the addition of the parsnips in there too. It adds another sweet dimension. So you want to get this all incorporated. If nobody was watching, I'd probably use my hands. But this smells absolutely wonderful. And you don't want to overmix it, but you want to make sure you get everything blended really well. You can see as you're blending it where all the herbs and everything are going. It just smells so good. We're going to put these in the oven just to brown them a little bit so that you know they're going to hold together in the oven. And I have a medium-sized scoop. And this is another essential tool in your kitchen. We're just going to scoop them onto a cookie sheet. And it's probably a good size. You want to be able to find your meatballs in the soup, and they will shrink up a little bit in the oven. And again, using a scoop helps keep everything very uniform, and it makes it look like you know what you're doing, which is important. It's a great comfort food for these cold winter days that we've been having. And I hear from a lot of you, and I appreciate all your emails and your suggestions. And this came up quite a bit, that we haven't cooked with some lamb. So good suggestion, people, because I think it's a great Irish take on a very easy stew. And like I said, you could do this ahead of time and then just reheat it. I think that'd be good. I imagine you could adapt it to a slow cooker too if you'd like. But it's not that hard to do at the last minute. So we're going to take this. We have them all pretty evenly done. And we're going to pop these in the oven. And when we come back, we're going to start off on our potato biscuits. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. We are going to make some potato biscuits. And I don't know about you, but there's nothing like biscuits with potatoes. It sounds Irish, at least to me. And we have some warm leftover mashed potatoes, or you could buy the ones that are all packaged. And these happen to have garlic in mashed potatoes. So why not? Potatoes and garlic. And then we're going to mix a cup of buttermilk. And I added a little bit of chives to my buttermilk for flavor. So we're going to do 1 cup of homemade buttermilk. And if you didn't have buttermilk, you can just do a cup of milk with about 2 teaspoons of vinegar, white vinegar, and you'll have a buttermilk. And let it set for a minute. And you could also buy a buttermilk powder. So in here I have 3/4 cups of mashed potatoes. And we're just going to blend that. I find it's easier to do them all together and treat them as they're a liquid. And I'm going to add to this 2 tablespoons of melted butter into that. And then I'm just going to let that set for a minute. And you can see why you want your mashed potatoes to be warm. So in here we have 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of sugar, regular white sugar, a 1/2 teaspoon of Himalayan sea salt or regular salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And the black part here is crushed black peppercorns. And I love the new rainbow variety of peppercorns. They're all different. Each peppercorn has its own flavor. So why not get one and have a complex flavor instead of just one flavor? So we're just going to mix that with 2 cups of flour. I'm also going to add, just to have a little interest in there, some more green chives. And because I have plenty of parsley and it adds such a nice color, about a tablespoon of each of those. And then here I have some grated Swiss cheese, probably a 1/3 cup, just because it goes really well with the potatoes. So we're going to toss that a little bit. And I'm going to turn my oven on to 375, turn that up, because you want your oven to be really, really hot. And these don't take very long at all to cook. And I'm just going to take this, and I think it needs to be blended just a little bit more with the potatoes in there, just so you don't take as many lumps out as you can. I probably could have used a bigger bowl, but that's okay. Oh, this smells so good with the garlic and the fresh herbs in here. These are going to be nice. And I have a little extra flour on hand just in case we need a little more flour in here. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to blend this in. Let me get a spatula. I think it'll work well. And we're just going to pour this in until we have a nice sticky dough. And I do this carefully. You don't want to over mix it, but you want enough so the dough will still be sticky but adhere together. I think we're going to use all of that in there. And again, a great way to use leftover mashed potatoes. And I've seen versions of this where you can do it with sweet potato biscuits. And you can even put this, add some stout beer to the potatoes as well and make a beer-based biscuit. But I thought with having it in the soup stock that this would not overkill, you know, just kind of temper it a little bit. And I'm going to take this and put it on. Look what I have. Oh, these are heavy. My cast iron, wonderful cast iron skillet. And making sure you want to knead this just a little bit. I think I'm going to knead this on the board just to get everything evenly incorporated in here. I have my little flour shaker. Put a little flour down. This would be an easy biscuit recipe for the kids to do too. And our soup is simmering away. I'm just going to push this on the board. Oh, these look good. This is going to be the perfect thing to go alongside your stew. And then just gently folding it over using the spatula, using the flour on your board. And I'm just going to pat it out. And I have a little biscuit cutter here. Grab a little flour. I'm going to cut out some biscuits. And I have parchment paper here on a cast iron griddle. And I'm going to see how many biscuits we get out of this. That baking powder is going to help them rise considerably. I do that to get the flour off. And if you remember from the other time we made biscuits, you never want to twist your biscuit dough. You want to press down straight so that the edges are going to rise up. If you twist them, then you won't get good edges on your biscuits. So I'm patching it up to use all of our dough. And that's the timer for our meatballs should be done, our lamb meatballs. So I'm going to put those in the stew. These are going to be nice and fluffy. I wonder how many we're going to get.
I think it said 10 to 12 biscuits, depending on the size. You can see all the nice herbs in there as well. And again, it's important that you don't overwork the dough so you get a more tender biscuit. Can we fit 2 more in? I think we're going to do it. Get 1 more in and we're good. That's perfect size. And your cast iron is nothing like a cast iron pan. And those are going to go into the oven and they're going to bake. I'm going to set the timer for about, let's do 15 minutes on these. And they're going to be golden brown. So I'm going to take our meatballs out and pop these in the oven and we'll be right back to finish everything off.
Hi, welcome back. I wish you could smell the soup. The flavors are so amazing in here. Look at all these carrots and parsnips. And even if you don't like parsnips, they're so sweet in here. And look at our beautiful meatballs. Oh my gosh. These are going to be good. And we're just going to kind of float them in there for a little bit. And at this point, they're practically done, probably 3/4 of the way done, but they're going to hold together really well because you brown them first in the oven, which gives them a nice flavor. Look at on the bottom. See, they have caramelized. And this is a great way to do stew with lamb in it that doesn't take you hours to tenderize it. It's just using ground lamb. And look at the big pot of soup that we have here. So I'm going to put that back on the stove. Look at that. Oh, you could charge people for this if you have them for dinner, but what a great winter comfort soup this is. So I'll put that back on there, turn up the heat a little bit. And they're nice and warm when I put them in there, so it won't take too long, probably 10 minutes. And if you wanted to hold them for a dinner party or whatever, you can just turn off your oven and let it set. It'll keep really well, and then just reheat it as you need them. But oh my gosh, those smell good. And look at our little cupcakes with the mint in the center. And this is why I love to use the scoop, because look at how evenly they come out. I mean, they're beautiful, but we're going to bump it up a little bit. And we're going to do a frosting, like a buttercream frosting. And there's just about 2 cups of confectioner's sugar. And I'm going to add into that about 1/2 cup of softened butter. And I always add a little bit, this is a pastry tip too, a little bit of vegetable shortening. I'm going to add that in and stand back because we're going to mix it. And I'm going to try and do it very slowly. And I have some vanilla here, and I have some Baileys cream and a little bit of green food coloring. And I'm going to start out very slowly with this. I'm just blending in the softened butter and Crisco. And this is why I have a deep bowl, so that it kind of gets everything going at once. And then I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla. And my homemade vanilla is just plain vodka or brandy with some vanilla beans. So I'm going to put about 1/2 teaspoon of that. And then while the machine is running, just a little nip until it comes together of our Baileys Irish Cream liqueur. And you want to just add a little at a time until it comes together. Now we can speed it up a little bit. I think that's perfect.
beautiful. I don't think I'll do any of the green food coloring. I might. I don't know. Depends on what mood I'm in. It's so pretty, this color, though. I don't think I will. I kind of like the toasted almond color of the Baileys Irish Cream. And then we're going to take our cooled, to make sure they're cooled, our beautiful little cupcakes, and just put a light coating on the top of each one. You can use an offset spatula if you'd like. You see, I have a smaller one here, or you can use a metal one. And when you bite into that and see the beautiful mint patty inside. But that looks like Irish cream. I think I like the natural color rather than add a little bit of green. I'm not much of a baker, but these here are going to be a big hit. I'm more of a cook because you don't have to be as precise when you're cooking as when you're baking. Our potato biscuits are in the oven. Those should be coming out shortly. This should be just enough. Get the children involved in frosting the cupcakes. And when you start out with the store-bought cake mix, you can't go wrong. I mean, it's just taking what you have that's ready-made and making it your own. Look at how pretty those are. And those are half. We have the other half cooling. And those are our Baileys Cupcakes. And our biscuits are about ready. So when we come back, we're going to put all of this together. So stay tuned. Hi, welcome back. Our biscuits are still cooking, our potato biscuits. So I thought we'd do a little bit of tool time tonight. And I'm going to talk about one of my favorites in the kitchen, our cast iron cooking utensils. And cast iron is a reactive metal that's great to use. In the old days, there were no iron shortages, or very few of them, because the cast iron and iron, it's good for you to use. And they last forever if you don't drop them, and please don't drop them. They are very heavy. Look at this big, big cast iron, heavy as can be. These are great for braising because they keep the temperatures very, very even. So let's say you wanted to do a pot roast. This is a perfect, evenly heated skillet and a utensil to use. Browning your meats in here, slow braising of chickens, and even roasting a turkey in here. It's just a great thing to have. You could do lasagna in here, much as you would a 9x13 baker. But I find for cooking meats and braising, it's just wonderful. You can cover it over with foil and use those. That's a great size, good family size. But again, they're very, very heavy. So that's a great one. And then a medium size, this is a Stovetop Skillet. So these come in all different sizes. I've even seen little tiny ones that you can do for just one person, an egg for breakfast. Sometimes they're little square griddles you can use. But this makes the best fried chicken you've ever had. If you want a nice crust on your chickens and your hamburgers. And you season all of these pans, and I think we've talked about this off and on. You just never use soap on here because it takes all the years of seasoning that you want in here. When you finish using your cast iron, just rinse it out with hot water after it's cool. And, a little scrub brush. And then the first few times you use it, you want to season it with oil and put it in the oven at about 350 for about an hour or so. And that'll bake even the handles because you don't want them to rust. And you rub it all over with a good, like a canola oil or a vegetable oil. Put it in your oven at 350 for about an hour, and these will season your pans. And after that, you've done that after about 4 uses or so, you can do it, rub just the inside, and I put it on top of my stovetop at a very low flame for about 5 minutes just to dry the surface after you use it. You never want to put away your cast iron when it's wet. You always want to dry it out, even in the oven or on top of a range, and that will keep them looking great for years. This large rectangle one I've had for about almost 40 years. I mean, I just love it, and it's well used and well loved. So I have a handle skillet, and I always leave a pot holder on the handle when I take it out of the oven to remind myself that these are very hot and they stay hot for a long time. These make great, if you've ever had a Dutch baby or a pancake that puffs up, this is what I use for my French pancakes. And then here's a little 2-person size, or you can make a beautiful pie or a galette. We did a shepherd's pie in here. They even have little individual ones if you'd like. Roast your potatoes in this. Just a little casserole or a small cobbler is just the perfect size with the handles. And again, if you take care of these, you're going to have them forever. And what a nice thing to pass on down to your children is something that's been well used and well loved. You're going to really enjoy the nice sear that you get on these. And it just says comfort when you're using these in your kitchen. It's a little bit of history to pass along. So give them a try, and we'll be right back to serve up our potato biscuits and our Irish meal.
Welcome back, and happy St. Patty's Day to everyone. Even if you're not Irish, you're going to want to try this meal. Look at our beautiful potato biscuits that came out. You'd never know they were used or leftover potatoes, not used, leftover potatoes with some nice herbs. They're as light as can be with some nice sweet butter with them. Amazing. And look at our beautiful stew that we have here. We're going to take and serve up some. Look at the lamb meatballs and the parsnips and the wonderful, look at the color of this broth. It is so rich, and that's because we caramelized the onions first, and it makes a huge difference. And then our Baileys Irish cream cupcakes. Those are fun, and I did add a little bit of green to them because it's St. Patty's Day, so why not? So what a nice comfort meal for these cold winter days that we've been having. And I want to thank you again to everybody who writes in with your suggestions. You really inspire me to give you what you want to hear and different ideas and techniques. And I hope you all try this for yourself. So thank you again for watching, and may the fork be with you.